Namaste. Good morning to you all. Dear Professor Srinivas Varakhedi, today's distinguished speaker, Dr. Geetesh Nirban, co-convener of the webinar, distinguished invitees, and dear friends interested in Mahabharata scholarship, I welcome you all to the 33rd session of this series of webinars on Mahabharata, as hosted by Department of Philosophy, University of Delhi, and Kamala Nehru College, University of Delhi. These webinars are organized under the aegis of Spark Project, which is a scheme for promotion of academic and research collaboration, an initiative of Ministry of Education, Government of India. Though it is a repetition for the sake of the speaker and also the friends who have joined us for the first time, let me share the details of the project once again on this platform. The title of the project is Yoga Consciousness in Mahabharata and Bhagavad Gita, an ethical value for societal and political well-being. We are working as a team for this project along with Professor Vishwa Adluri from Hunter College, City University of New York, USA, who is the international principal investigator, and Dr. Joydeep Bachi from Germany, who is presently associated with Hindu University of America as international co-principal investigator. Dr. Geetesh Nirban, who is hosting this webinar now, is the Indian co-principal investigator. She is from Department of Philosophy, Kamala Nehru College, University of Delhi. And I am the principal investigator from Indian side of this project, Balaganapati Devarakonda. Our extended team consists of Ms. Jayashree Jha, Ms. Anmol Preet Kaur, Ms. Megha Kapoor, who are the research scholars at the Department of Philosophy, University of Delhi, who are working on
Is there a connectivity issue? I think there is a slight connectivity issue. I'm sure Dr. Bala will join in a few seconds. Please bear with us.
I hope I am audible. Yeah,
Yes.
I'm sorry, I lost my connectivity in between. I'm sorry for that. Yeah, I was talking about the objectives of the project, which is also to look and understand yoga beyond a set of postures as an overarching term for salvic practices, and to see how it is embedded in social and political reality. We also attempt to reappropriate the texts of classical Hinduism, which have suffered from the Orientalist approaches, in order to articulate the vision of yoga consciousness. And we also try to look at the basic question like, what is the right action? And this has been the concern, whether you are in the classical times or modern times or whatever, even in future, this would be the major concern. What is the right course of action? And even if you identify what is the right course of action, how to perform this right course of action is very important, and it creates a lot of concern for all of us, whether it is in the social domain or in the political domain or in the spiritual domain. And we attempt to look at these aspects in the project. The series of webinars are our humble attempt to make the various aspects of Mahabharata reach the diverse audience who hold interest in the study of the epic. We started this series of webinar during the extreme phase of lockdown to engage minds with Mahabharata. We have had the privilege of hosting scholars of repute from universities and organizations in India and abroad, wherein diverse topics related to Mahabharata and Bhagavad Gita have been touched, ranging from social and political well-being, ethical dilemmas, justice, consciousness, karma yoga, and instrumental violence, and environmental influences. So many topics were covered, and all as an attempt to explore Mahabharata for the human well-being. We are very honored to have with us today a well-established and reputed scholar, a good friend, and also a well-wisher, Professor Srinivas Varakhedi, who is presently the Vice Chancellor of Kavikula Guru Kalidasa Sanskrit University, Ramtek, Maharashtra. And he would be speaking to us on stories of curses and boons, the base for the big story, Mahabharata. In fact, friends, if we look at these two things, no, curses and boons, how do we understand them? Sometimes we tend to neglect the importance attributed to these two, or we tend to misunderstand the importance of them in the course of looking at the story. When you try to go along with the storyline, or when you try to go along with a particular character, sometimes we tend to misunderstand the importance of curses and boons. And in this regard, mostly we tend to understand that curses are of negative and boons are of positive in nature. But in fact, if you look at the storyline of Mahabharata, these two sometimes get a different kind of, that the dynamics of boons and curses is a very fertile area where less work was done, I believe. In this regard, basically, for instance, if you understand curse to be a negative one, then you have to understand to whom it is going to be negative. For instance, if you look at the curse that was given to Arjuna by Manaka, in fact, it's not a curse at all. It turned out to be a boon. So that is how the relation between these two is a very interesting and fertile area to look at. And what would be the implications of that? No? And what would be the strength of a curse? Is it the person who is giving the curse, or what is the strength of the boon? Is it the person who is asking for the boon is supposed to be the strong person there? So this whole thing, where do you place the strength of curse and strength of boon is also another important dimension that we can look at. And what is the relation between these two is also very interesting. And how do they influence the course of storyline is very interesting to look at. And I'm sure we would be enlightened on these aspects by Professor Srinivas Varakhedi during his talk. Without wasting much time, I request Dr. Geetesh to introduce Professor Srinivas Varakhedi formally so that he can begin his lecture. Over to you, Dr. Geetesh.
Thank you, Professor Bala. Namaskar to all. Our esteemed guest of the day, as Professor Bala just mentioned, is Professor Srinivasa Varakhedi. He's a renowned Indian academic who is serving as the Vice Chancellor of Kavikul Guru Kalidas Sanskrit University, Ramtek at Nagpur in Maharashtra. Professor Varakhedi has served as Dean Shastra Faculty and Director of Research and PG Studies in Karnataka Sanskrit University, Bangalore. Formerly, he was Director of Sanskrit Academy, a research institute funded by Rashtriya Sanskrit Sansthan, Osmania University, Hyderabad. Professor Varakhedi is academically trained in Vedic Shastras in the traditional Gurukula system, and he completed his doctoral research in Nyaya Shastra and computational linguistics. He has held significant positions in Sanskrit Bharati for several years. There are many papers, books, articles, and projects to his credit, and he has guided many research scholars in MPhil and PhD in the subjects of Nyaya, Vedanta, and computational linguistics. Professor Varakhedi holds a specialization in Sanskrit philosophy, computational linguistics, Sanskrit pedagogy, and Sanskrit semantic studies. In spite of his very hectic schedule, Professor Varakhedi has been generous enough to spare time for all of us on this Spark platform. And we are really very honored to have him with us today. As Professor Bala mentioned, today Professor Varakhedi will be sharing his thoughts on a very important theme, and that is Stories of Curses and Boons, the base for the big story, the Mahabharata. I now request Professor Warakedi to take over.
Suprabhatam, good morning, one and all. Thank you, Professor Balaganapati and Dr. Gitesh for creating an opportunity for me to share some of my thoughts on the Mahabharata. This online space has created new way of sharing. Now we are, for last 1 year, we're expanding ourselves through this platform. Spark is a new platform to share something on Mahabharata. Mahabharata is an ocean. And as we all experience, though we keep on sharing on the Mahabharata for years and years, something will be left. Yadi hasti tadanyatra yadnya hasti na kutrachit. It is, of course, it is a story of humanity. It is not just the history. It is story of humanity. According to me, it is reflection of human psychology. Of course, it is a historical event, but the narration of historical event has become a story for us, has become a story of humanity, a reflection of human psychology. Of course, the very definition of itihasa is very interesting. So in India, itihasa has a very significant existence. It is not history. History has some constraints. It is, in one sense, exact narration of the event. The narration never happens to be exact, actually. Whatever narration we do, that narration will be that reflects our own thoughts, our own learnings, our own observations. So itihasa is a kind of observation. It is a kind of reporting. Iti means evam, thus. Thus has some kind of, it signifies my own observation. Thus, this is how it is. This is how I have seen it. I have observed it. And her, of course, a term which signifies I have enough evidence. Her means evidence. And the rest of word expresses the event, exact happening or event. So altogether, without personal experiences, personal observations, itihasa cannot exist. It continues, it is continued story of narration of the self, my own experiences. Each time Mahabharata is added a new experience of the storyteller. You cannot say that Mahabharata is the story created by Vyasa. Of course, he has created it. But each time when I share, I again reiterate or narrate the Mahabharata, I add my own experience. I add my own iti. Therefore, it is not itivritta. It is not Itivritta means it is just in the Puranas itself, we find another word, Puravrittam. It happened in the past. There you can see the history. It is Puravritta. But Itihasa is not Puravritta. It is again adding something to it or narrating my own learnings on the basis of the past. In that sense, Mahabharata is a continuous story. It never ends. I can keep on adding. So in these lines, I think Spark is adding new Mahabharata. Spark is again creating Mahabharata. Each day, new lecture is adding something to the Mahabharata. So Mahabharata is a continuous story. With this note, I would like to take upon, share something on the stories of curses and the boons. How do I see them? If we look at the story of Mahabharata, I did not narrate the entire story. It is knitted on certain points. If we closely look at the points, the turning points or the knots, they are the curses and wounds. How do you really look at the entire world? And world is again a continuous, happening. And the narration of the world is also a complex idea. You cannot say that it is just there are lines or there are without having the cross points, turning points, we cannot see the Mahabharata. See, when if you take the entire time as to understand, time is, the notion of time is very interesting in India. It is not just a line. It is in the nature of cycle. The cyclic nature of time absorbs lot of memory traces. In the line of the time, which is of the cyclic nature, memory traces are dropped. Those traces will create results again and again. How time passes. One action, and the action leaves some result, creates some results. That those results will leave some impact, some traces. Those traces cover the entire line of the time. So actions and reactions, human emotions, sound, these are all vibrations. Each vibration will create a ray of trace. It leaves a trace in the time. So those traces again push the actions, emotions, and sounds. This cycle will continue. In that sense, we should understand what I am telling is the curses or the boons need not be interpreted in terms of superstitious ideas. Each word has an emotion. Each emotion is a reaction. Each reaction has an action. So each action is a result of something which is left out in the time, that memory trace. that we call sanskar. So some sanskar in personal level, or in the societal level, or in the level of nature, some memory trace is left out. That memory trace will push us to take some action, then actions into reactions, reactions into emotions, emotions to words, feelings, expressions, and those expressions again leave some impact on the human minds, and again sanskara is created. This is how the entire life cycle goes. So the curses are not just superstitious ideas. They are the real factors of the real unseen and sometimes unforgotten, the gaps between the results and actions. Many times we see results, but we don't see the real actions or reactions, which are which are causing those results. Now we can see the curses and the boons, the stories of curses and boons in the Mahabharata are explanations for the entire story. These stories give us a lot of explanations about the entire story. Otherwise, we cannot really connect the entire story. Somewhere somebody is killed and somebody is pained, and entire humanity is going to an end, and many are affected. The lives have gone, and again somebody is taking rebirth. How to connect them? If you see the various small stories of Mahabharata, you cannot connect them. So it is so complex. So there is no, it is not just a chronological order. Mahabharata story, if you read, this is not just a chronological order of some events. No, it is so complex across the timeline, across the the space. And when you see the story, the Vyasa has really narrated the story with some connectivities. Those connecting points are the events of curses and events of the boons. So what I'm proposing is, actually curses or boons, these kinds of small events are not part of the entire Mahabharata story. They are, in one sense, used as connecting factors by Vyasa. Those are unseen. Those events are not seen, or not seen or not experienced by the common person, common man. If I am audience to the Mahabharata, main story runs through the main events, but at the background we can see some explanations. Those explanations come in the form of the stories of curses and woes. So this is how the entire story is knitted on some interesting points. When we see the ocean, the waves come and go. A big wave comes and it hits the earth, and again it returns in the downs, and again at one point we don't know where exactly it takes the turn. It takes the turn, and again it creates another wave which comes, and sometimes smaller, sometimes longer, and sometimes very short. These kinds of waves come and hit and go back. there is a vibrant point of vibration in the ocean, which is not seen. This vibration point is very important. Otherwise, we can see the ocean, waves in the ocean, but we cannot really understand how these waves are created. Even in the Mahabharata story, the big, very in large scale war has happened, and killings have happened, and many died. Many did not die. Why? Somebody died, somebody did not die. Somebody is continuing with wound, and he is experiencing the death of someone else. He is really in the sorrow. Dead is dead, but somebody is really experiencing the pain of death. Why all these things? So then we can see there is something which is paining someone, which is causing pain to someone. And these aspects we should understand. And I was wondering why someone's just an expression of his wish or desire, or his expression of his anger, expression of his sorrow, his own pain. How can such expressions become the cause for something else? We should understand even the word is an action. Every action results into something. And that leaves some sort, it is not just understanding. It is not just an awareness. It is not just cognition. That leaves some sort of impact on the minds. And then those impacts altogether become societal feelings. Even today, when we all vote for someone collectively, it's a boon for him. But collective opinions are created through some words only. Without words, we cannot get some collective opinion, good or bad. So in that sense, even somebody's sentence, somebody's word will have impact in a different way. For example, if Supreme Court sentences someone, the word of Supreme Courts, the verdict of Supreme Court will have huge impact on the society. Sometimes you may consider that is the curse. Sometimes that is the boon. For example, if when appointing authority in a system, he can pronounce some curse to someone. He can say, you are suspended. That has impact. And you are dismissed. So that capacity one earns through his authority. Similarly, the curses are given with some authority. It is a kind of punishment. And those pronouncements will have impact in different ways. Now we can understand the grand story of Mahabharata, with grand narration of Mahabharata with small stories of curses and boons. Coming to some interesting points, one more point I would like to tell here. When we see something outside world through a small window, so many things are not covered. So many, when somebody is pushed by someone and he falls down, we can see that he has pushed him, somebody has fallen down through the window. But we cannot see what made him to push him. That background story is very important. If I expand my window, then only I can see somebody is pushing him. So that factor becomes very important in understanding somebody is falling out. Therefore, Mahabharata gives us a new kind of window which is expanded through the centuries and centuries and centuries, because human life is not limited to 100 years. Human life is expanded to the, in fact, it is ananta, infinity. With this note, I will I would love to take to you the stories of Mahabharata. Let me begin with one interesting story. Bhishma is given a boon, that is Ichhamarana. It is you can accept the death whenever you want. It is willful death. It is given to him because he served his mother, and mother said, and father said that we are pleased with your service, and you can remain as long as you want. You can continue in life in this body as long as you want. Death cannot attack you. Whenever you want, you can accept the death. This Ichha Marana, of course, it looks like a boon. Who does not want to live longer period? But when you personally ask Bhishma, it was a curse for him, because he cannot die and he cannot live with all these sorrows, with all these complexities of life. Everybody is dying before him. Even at the end, his own grandchildren are fighting with each other, and they died with entire. They destroyed the nation, country which he himself has built. He has seen that, and his wisdom was never used. He was neglected. All these he had to experience. Ichhamarana was not a boon for him. Personally, Ichhamarana was not a boon for him. But when you see the Mahabharata story at the end, even after his his killing, he will not die. He is on the deathbed. He is living. And then Krishna brings, after the completion of war, Krishna brings all Pandavas to Bhishma and requests him to transfer his knowledge and wisdom to the Pandavas to continue his next generation of his kingdom. He was pleased to offer his all knowledge to Yudhishthira. That entire Shanti Parva is a wonder, of human knowledge. We cannot believe what it is. Minus Shanti Parva, Mahabharata is nothing. Because this Ichhamarana, capacity of Ichhamarana of Bhishma, it is retained. The knowledge is retained. Otherwise, Bhishma would have been killed and knowledge would have been killed. Knowledge is maintained because of this Ichhamarana. See, this was a boon for the entire humanity, and for him it was a curse. So you cannot say that somebody's statement and his offering of Ichhamarana, whether it was a curse or boon, it was both. And it is so dynamic. And to someone it is curse and someone it is boon. So if we go on looking at the stories of Mahabharata, they're full of curses, varieties of curses. Of course, curse sometimes in the form of blessing, and some blessing is in the form of curse. Therefore, I call curse and boons are just expressions of the wish that are expressed by someone, aggrieved or pleased person. by the aggrieved person or pleased person, that result into good or evil. So sometimes curse will result into good and boon result into evil. We cannot say that. This is very interesting story because it's so dynamic, and Mahabharata explains it. There are 4 factors in the curse or boon. One is the word, the statement. Without statement, you cannot say this is curse or boon. No, that there should be some statement. In supreme in the court, if the judge keeps his verdict in his mind, people cannot implement it. So when the verdict is given in the form of a statement, then it can be said it's a verdict. So similarly, curse or boons are in the form of word. Second aspect is it is a desire to punish someone, or it is desire to reward someone. It's a rewarding or punishment. It's a desire to punish or to reward. And the third aspect is the power behind it. A statement given by a judge will be powerful. Same statement delivered by someone else, or someone else who does not have any power, cannot be said it's a judgment, powerless statement. So curses with power only will have an impact. So 4 aspects I'm telling. One is word. It should be in the form of statement, and it is a desire of punishment or a reward, and it should have power in the background, and the person should have authority to pronounce it. If he or she is an authority to do that, curse will not have any impact. It becomes effectless. This has been seen in Mahabharata. Many statements, many curses have become fertile. No use of them. Why? Because there was no authority, there was no power. So in Vriddha Chanakya, there is a statement. Why in the Kali Yuga we don't have power of cursing or anugraha, shapanugraha shakti? Why there is no shapanugraha shakti in human beings? Of course, there is a shapanugraha shakti in the structured powers, like in political powers today. We have someone who is sitting in the power can really curse someone, and he can punish someone, and even the person who has earned power of through the democracy, he can really express some of his desire. For example, Anna Hazare sat for Satyagraha, and it was a curse for the government, and government fell down. And of course, these are curses, and society will stand for that. This is how curses will have impact on the society. And somebody curses, somebody takes, because he has earned the power of cursing, power of curse. He has earned throughout his life. That is called tapas. We call it in tapas, in the form of tapas. Tapas is nothing but gaining power to give an empowerment to his own statements. Then the statements become fruitful. They will not be they will not go in vain. So in that sense, we should understand these 4 factors. In Kali Yuga, it is a suggestion by Vriddha Chanakya. Chanakya says, Kuta shapah kalau yuge. Why the citizens of Kali Yuga do not have the power of shapa and anugraha? He says, mukham dagdham parannena. I translate mukham dagdham parannena. If you follow Sanskrit, it is so nice word. Mukham dagdham parannena. Always we are dependent on somebody's giving. and we are totally dependent on someone else, and somebody is feeding us and we are fed by someone else. Therefore we are not living on ourselves. Therefore we can't curse someone, we can't give any boon to someone. Mukhan dagdham parannena hastau dagdhau pratigrahat. Always we are just accepting something from others, and our both hands are burnt. Both hands are burnt. Therefore, we cannot give curse and boon to someone. Mukhan dagdham parannena hastau dagdho pratigrahat mano dagdham parairvittaihi. Looking at the other's wealth, our mind has burnt. Therefore, we don't have really power to express our desire and give. In olden days, in Mahabharata TV channel, you can see some water is taken at the hands, and some rishi spelling some mantra, he throws water on somebody else, and then all of a sudden he disappears, or he becomes preta. He becomes his body becomes something go into bad shape. This is curse. And to give curse we need three, mukha and mind and hands. All the three are burnt, therefore we cannot give any sharp or curse to someone else. So this is interesting. It is, you need not read them in the exact, in the direct sense. You can read the sense of it. You can feel the sense of it. Why one becomes powerful to give the curse. See, let us look at some other interesting stories. In the Mahabharata, there are three very, very important curses. Draupadi curses the Kauravas. She says, it's very horrible story. When she was taken to the king's court and she was disrobed, and in that situation, she curses. She says, these guys who have dragged me into the court and made me tried to make me naked. It was just trial. It did not happen actually. And then she was really upset, and she says, let the wives of these people become widows, and I want to see them. It was totally cursed to another woman. It was, once you see the lines, you will become very upset, why she is cursing the someone who is not at all in the entire picture. And of course, the storyline goes, because sometimes if you want to really punish someone and somebody else experiences the punishment, this happens in the life, because the same situation she wanted to create for their wives, and that will lead these people, the Kauravas will have to live that sort of fear for 14 years. They don't know when Pandavas will come and make the statement of Draupadi true. They don't know. They are waiting for that. This entire fearful life was a curse for them. 14 years they were just waiting for their death. This is really horrible life. Waiting for death is horrible life. They were not at all enjoying their life. On the other hand, Pandavas were enjoying. See, the 14 years, it was a curse for them. And after 14 years, of course, they died and their wives experienced that. Sometimes generations will experience. For example, it is very interesting event in the Mahabharata. Gandhari's expression of sorrow. Gandhari, when she saw the death of all her sons, and lastly, to console her, Vyasa comes and says, don't get into anger, control yourself. Then she controls, and then Krishna says, the Yudhishthira, you don't go in front. Okay, he knows that if Yudhishthira goes there, immediately he will get some curse. She was waiting with anger. She is controlling herself, and Krishna comes front. Then she says, I cannot stop myself. I cannot control myself. She says, Krishna, you are the person who did all these things. Therefore, you will see all your younger generation will also go into the experience the similar situation they will not live for long, and after 36 years Yadavas will fight with each other and Krishna becomes alone at the end of life. The result of curse, after 36 years, they experience that the power of curse. Of course, Krishna was enjoying his life, and that's totally because. But the point, then you can see, Yudhishthira comes there. Yudhishthira in turn pleases for, he really comes to Gandhari and he pleases her. He says, he's pleading for Shapa. Yudhishthira is pleading for Shapa with Gandhari. Please curse me. Please give a curse me. Otherwise, please punish me. Otherwise, I'll be feeling guilty in the whole life. Yudhishthira says, Putra hanta nrisham soham tavadevi Yudhishthira. Oh, my mother, I am the killer of your sons. I am very, very bad person. Shaparhaha. I am eligible for all kinds of shapa. You give me shapa. Please give me shapa. She won't give. That is another curse for him. She won't punish him. She says, I am not going to give you any shapa. Okay. Entire life Yudhishthira was under guilt. This is another kind. Even with living without giving any shapa is also another shapa. This is really bad. If someone lives with guilt, if he is punished, he'll be happy. If he is not punished, he will live a very sorrowful life for entire life. This is really dangerous. So in Mahabharata twisting stories, you can see a lot of things like this. And then it is called Varayachana is one side and Shapayachana is seen in the Mahabharata in this event. Shapayachana. He is really pleading for Shapa, but she is not giving. He is ready to accept the Shapa, feeling of guilt, and he will not get it. So the two curses, Draupadi and Gandhari, if you see, two ladies who are very powerful ladies in Mahabharata. One is creating the Mahabharata war, another is creating another war after the Mahabharata. That war is again, it is one sense, it is a sort of refreshing the world, bringing the world in new order. War is required. War is essential. Now, don't take my word as in a direct sense. If war is happening, it is because of somebody's decision. Somebody has decided war should happen. That decision, result of that decision is the war. Today, somewhere in some country, between some countries, some war is happening. somebody has programmed it. Draupadi's word has programmed the Mahabharata war. Gandhari's word has programmed the Yadavas. How it happens? The word is not just, it is not superstitious power. That statement goes into the ears of someone and it becomes part of their feelings. Yes, one day we will fight with each other because somebody has forcefully said it. The power of statement. If I tell you, see, when Arjuna was sitting in front of the war, leaving his all astras, Krishna said, "Oh Arjuna, you are not meant for this. You are meant for something else. You are here to fight against adharma." These words made him stand. The words are so powerful. It pushes you into action today or tomorrow. The statement of Gandhari pushed the entire generations of Yadavas into a war. They had decided that one day we are going to fight. Okay, that decision goes to generation. They are ready. They prepared themselves for the war over 35 years after Gandhari's statement. This is how powerful statements become the curse. And they really impact the human minds, and human minds push them into actions. Then those actions become behavior, and entire humanity is covered with that. So in that sense, very interesting, some smaller, these are stories of curses of death. If you leave these things, even the curses like Yayati's curses to his son and Jamadagni's curses to his wife are the curses within the family. And then sometimes our unfulfilled desire makes us angry, and then that anger is expressed in terms of curse. For example, Urvashi curses Arjuna. She says, "You become Napumsaka. You become Napumsaka." Then the story, when Arjuna went to Swarga, then he was offered Urvashi as a company, and she comes there and she offers her service to Arjuna, and Arjuna says, "You are my mother." And she was insulted. "Oh, you are telling me your mother, and how dare you?" And do I look like your mother, aged? She was really angry. And she says, "You become Napumsaka, you are a waste fellow." Then he says, it was this expression of anger. He says, "Please forgive me." Then she says, okay, I understood. You can use it as a temporary arrangement for in your lifetime. Anytime if you want to become Napumsaka, you can use it. Then 1 year he has used it for during Ajnatavasa. He has used this as a boon. He becomes Brahannala then, and he was under disguise, and then he was not known by others. This Urvashi Shapa became a power to Arjuna. And similarly, Devayani is curse to Kacha. It was again like Urvashi. She was furious to Kacha. The story of Kacha. Kacha came to Shukracharya to learn some Sanjeevani Vidya, and which was given to him. During that period, Devayani, the daughter of Shukracharya, started loving him, and she went and she expressed her love towards Kacha. And Kacha said, "I am here on a mission, and my mission is accomplished. I cannot accept you." Then she says, you have cheated me. You have cheated me, therefore, your Sanjeevani Vidya is not going to help you. Your Sanjeevani Vidya, you cannot really use it in your entire life. Then he also, in turn, Kacha also curses Devayani, you are not going to get a good match in your life. So this is how unfulfilled personalities sometimes give, curse to each other. This is another kind of. Then Devayani also gets one curse. Then she will not get her a good match in her life, and of course uh, she is married to. mm, Later, she is married to Yayati, and Yayati was not happy with her. This story goes like this. Unhappiness in one's life and happiness in one's life is again because of some sort of curses and wounds. So we can see personal lives are also bound by these curses, not the life of the entire humanity. In one sense, I have given you two sides of stories. One story, some stories cover the entire humanity, entire society. Some curses will just cover one's life, and happy life and unhappy life are the result of somebody's boon and somebody's. So small statements are not small statements. Each statement, if they are empowered, if they are coming with some strong desire, strong emotions, they are in the form of curses or in the form of wounds. Sometimes mother's curses are also are seen here, and it is said that both statements we find, mother curses are not to be taken very seriously, because mother daily curses her sons or daughters, but she is not very serious about it. Therefore, mother curses are to be taken to be very seriously. That is one statement we can see in Mahabharata. In the same Mahabharata, mother curses are very powerful curses. You cannot avoid them. That means if the mother is so much painful and she is expressing, she will never give curses to her sons or daughters. But if she is so much pained, her expression becomes true. Therefore, don't touch her. So that is once this in the beginning of Mahabharata, during Sarpa Yaga, this kind of why Sarpas are offered into Agni. Sarpa Yaga, when a Parikshita performs it, the Sarpa sacrifice. Then the story goes to rewind. Rewind story goes there, and it was a fun that Kadru, the mother of Sarpas, Nagas, was upset with the Nagas, and she says, you did not follow my orders, therefore, all of you are going to die one day together. Then this curse became true when Sarpayaga was performed. So, um, so there are so many things, and sometimes shapas are used as weapon. Two stories, very interesting stories. Satyavati, in the beginning of Mahabharata, Satyavati, because Vyasa was burned to Satyavati, Satyavati and Parashara, and Satyavati was Kanya. She was not matured also. Then somehow she comes into contact of Parashara, and Parashara express her wish to have sex with her, and she was not ready. Then Parashara offers something to her, and there are so many things are there, and Satyavati could not really resist Parashara. And when she said, "It is a day, how can I, come with you? Because all are seeing." Then Parashara makes the entire region dark. And she said, no, 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 I'm not fresh. Then Parashara says, no, 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 now you are you are becoming fresh. He made her Pushpa Gandhi, Yojana Gandhi. And then she cannot reject him. She, even without any mind, she accept him because of fear of Shapa. It is said, Shapa Sankula, Shapa Bhayakula. She was frightened. If this Rishi is not accepted by me, definitely he is going to give me curse. Then she surrenders to him. Even in the story of Kunti, Surya, when she meets Surya Devata, and Surya wanted to, you know, to contact her, then Kunti says, no, no, I'm not ready. And with the fear of Shapa, she accepts him. So fear of Shapa also sometimes work. And even one very, very important story of birth is because of Shapa. Vidura's birth was explained in the background of a Shapa. Mandavi Rishi curses the Yamadharma, and Yamadharma takes birth as Vidura. You know why? Mandava says, Yamadharma, why you have given me this particular punishment? He was given some particular punishment in the after his death. Then Yamadharma says, no, 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 you have done some wrong thing when you are very young, therefore I have given you. Then Mandava says, I was unaware whether it was wrong or right, and you don't know how to give what is the nature of justice. Therefore, your knowledge of justice will be seen as useless. You go to human life, and you will not be respected, and your knowledge of justice will go in vain in front of yours, and you can see you are neglected. That sort of life you will lead. Then he comes to earth as Vidura. This is how even births are explained with the Shapa. Overall, the point is this, that Shapa stands for future. It creates future. It is not just blaming. It is not just bad mouthing. Bad mouthing stands for the past, because something you have done, therefore somebody is blaming you. But it is not just blaming. It is curse is standing for the future. It creates the future. So powerful statements create the future. They are not just indicators of the future. They are creators of the future. This is very much required. Why? This is balancing factor. This is yoga again. I am connecting with yoga. Yoga is balance. Samatvam yoga uchyate. It is balancing factor of the societal order. If you want to keep the society in order, dharma is to be maintained, then definitely there should be some punishment. And if a person wants to live a happy life, a shanti is required, then he should be removed out of guilt. Therefore, you should curse someone. Otherwise, if I am really doing some wrong things, if I am not given punishment, then my life will not be peaceful life. If I want peace, I should be punished. That punishment comes in the form of curses. That I will accept. That experience I will get in my lifetime. So this is how there is the entire Mahabharata balancing factor is the stories of curses and boons. With this note, I conclude my sharing on my own reading of the Mahabharata, and I am thankful to all of you for a patient listening. and open for any discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Bala. So today, Professor Varakhedi began his scholarly address by drawing our attention to a very significant element associated with the Mahabharata, that Mahabharata is a story of continuity, a story of humanity, that even if thoughts are shared for years related to the epic, yet something will always remain untouched. And that's what Professor Varakhedi touched upon, a very untouched topic called boons and touched upon the boons and the curses. So this is the ocean-like grandeur of the text. Today has been the 33rd lecture in the Spark series of webinars. And here again, we got to reflect on the unique topic, the unique theme in the epic, the curses and the boons in the Mahabharata through the words of Professor Varakhedi. Weaving through these various narratives based upon boons and curses in the epic related to Bhishma, Draupadi, Gandhari, Urvashi, Devyani, and few others, Professor Varakhedi shared how boons turn into curses and curses into boons within the very framework of the Mahabharata, and how Mahabharata yet continues to be a continuity through these boons and curses. He's explained how emotions through boons and curses have reactions followed by actions, flow of words, feelings, and then again emotions, creating samskaras, which determine the life cycles of individuals, and many a times they affect the society in general. Today's address has made it crystal clear that boons and curses play a balancing role in the epic, as Professor Varakhedi explained to all of us. And same applies to the contemporary world, wherein rewards and punishments do play a balancing role in the society, in the nation, and the world all over. We've been really honored to have you amongst us, sir. Today, your words have inspired us, and we determined to carry forward the spark of Spark ahead, inspired and encouraged through your address. So on the behalf of the Department of Philosophy, University of Delhi, Kamala Nehru College, Professor Bala Ganapathy, and the whole team of Spark Project, I thank Professor Varakhedi for sharing his academically stimulating thoughts with us. Thank you, sir, for being with us in spite of your very hectic schedule. I even thank our participants because they are the ones who inspire us and encourage us through their consistent presence. Please be with us throughout this series because it's going to really push us forward to complete all the 50 addresses that we have planned till the end of July.